Well, this is awkward. Hey all, Zach here. I know that this topic is already covered by the Unlucky Talk, but I can assure you that I've been wanting to cover 10 hidden gems in the hit era long before his video came out, going as far back as 2023. I know that some things are gonna be similar between the videos, but I can assure you this is all just coincidental. Fortunately, Nick didn't cover most of the episodes that I wanted to talk about in his video, so all is good. The hit era of Thomas and Friends. 5 seasons and 2 specials that were released in the time span of 2004 to 2008. Many fans don't necessarily love this era, and for good reason. There are many things wrong with it. The simplified writing, such as the lack of real railway operations or the random gimmicky locations, the lazy set design towards the end of its run, the annoying 3 strikes formula, the lack of old characters from the early seasons, but of course, worst of all, the horrible mischaracterizations of so many beloved characters. To say that the hit era got many things wrong would be an understatement. That being said, it is still far away from being the worst era of the show, especially with these 2 eras and the reboot existing. And to give it some credit, it can feel like classic Thomas. Sometimes. The hit era produced some amazing bangers throughout its run that can easily rival the best of the classic episodes, and today I would like to talk about episodes that in my opinion deserve to get more recognition for what they did. I am of course gonna refrain from the well-known grades such as Halloween, Respect for Gordon, or It's Good to Be Gordon. This is a hidden gems video, so I'm gonna choose 10 episodes, 2 from each season, that are rather overlooked in my opinion, and deserve to be praised for doing something noteworthy, or are just really well written stories that fit seemingly well in the realm of the Thomas franchise. With everything out of the way, let's examine 10 hidden gems in the hit era of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. To start off with our list, let's talk about an episode starring the most consistent character in the entire model series, James the Red Engine. From his first to his last episode, James has always been 100% consistent throughout all 12 seasons of the model era, and this episode is no exception. In this one, James is required to deliver a train of stone trucks from Knapford Shunting Yard all the way to Great Waterton. The icy weather only makes things difficult for James, and his train ends up getting stuck in a snowdrift. Once he finally realizes that Hector is only there to help him, can James finally make it through the snowdrift. He delivers his train successfully and thanks Hector for being a good truck. There's quite a lot to love about this episode. For one, James is written 100% perfectly in this one. Of course he's not gonna listen to a truck's advice, especially not after his dreadful accident in his early days.
Every wise engine knows that you cannot trust trucks.
James was present when Hector first arrived on the island and saw how horrid he was to Bill and Ben.
He does look troublesome. Off James.
However, he wasn't there to witness Hector's character arc, and henceforth he couldn't have known that he has changed his ways. The continuity is unusually strong in this episode, which for some reason is quite a common theme with season 12. I also really like Hector in this one. Unfortunately, this episode was his last ever appearance in the entire show, but I'm so glad to see that the status quo changed from Hector the Horrid stuck, and despite James's hostility towards him, Hector still decides to help him out and is at no point shown to be cross with him. Making James's last model series episode about him befriending a truck was such a smart idea, considering his first ever spotlight role was about him having a huge accident because of the trucks. It all comes full circle, and of course we all love to see character growth. While the episode is solid overall, it isn't perfect, as it does suffer from issues that season 12 is well known for, such as the outdated animation, the three strikes formula, and the flat set design. But other than that, James works it out as a solid conclusion to James's character journey.
You made it. We were worried. I wasn't worried. Hector helped me all the way. You can always rely on a good truck. Hector was happy to be a good truck, and James was happy to have a new friend.
I'm gonna start this off by saying that Madge is my favorite Hit era newbie, and her 2 episodes are one of the best the Hit seasons have to offer. This episode is a part 2 of a previous episode, Cool Truckings, in which we see Madge's fun and reckless, but also a caring and responsible side. This episode, however, focuses on her selfless side, where she puts others first and wants everything to be spick and span. A country show is to be held at the town square, and Madge is asked to take the brass band. She's also assigned to deliver soap and brushes to Rheneas and Skarloey respectively, who are to lead an engine rally. She wants to make sure that both engines are getting extra shiny, so she instructs the workmen on how to do so. She stays the entire cleaning sessions, but is now late herself, and subsequently a lot of mud clogs her exhaust pipe. When she tries to move, her engine backfires and...
The mud sprayed all over Rheneas and Skarloey.
As Madge did to them, the engines put Madge first, and now they are the ones telling the workmen how to get her clean and shiny instead. This episode has such a simple concept, with 3 old-timers getting dirty and then clean again. That's basically all the episode is. Paul Larson wrote this episode, and as he has proved many times in the show, he was at his best when he wrote the more character-driven stories with funny banter. I also love this episode for getting both Skarloey and Rheneas' personalities right for once. Not an ounce of the Hit era personality is present here, which is unfortunately totally exclusive to this episode. If you want to see a relationship between 3 old-timers having fun banter together, then look no further and give this episode a rewatch. This is one of the Hit era's many Thomas vs Diesel stories, and also one of the greatest. This episode revolves around Diesel's shenanigans towards Thomas throughout their journey to the flour mill. He tries to scare Thomas by making him think that the paranormal is having its ways on the railway. Thomas scoffs at this at first, but the haunting atmosphere is admittedly quite scary to look at. When the two arrive at the flour mill, Thomas has his own idea to get revenge on Diesel.
Ooh, it's the ghost engine. It's come to get me.
This unfortunately is the last ever spooky episode in the entire series. But for our last spooky episode, everybody did a really good job. The haunting music and the foggy, sinister visuals make this episode so eerie.
But the breeze blew, and the branches creaked. Diesel's teasing made it seem spooky indeed.
The visuals in this episode are a notable highlight in general. The opening shot is pretty, the mindset is cool, and the misty atmosphere throughout the episode is nice to look at. Hit in general was really good with night scenes, and this episode exemplifies that perfectly. I also like to see Thomas prioritize his work instead of trying to win up on Diesel. He does play his trick on him, but he immediately focuses on his work after, and is therefore the victor of the story. A great episode, definitely in my top 5 of season 9, and one that I highly recommend giving a rewatch. Gordon takes a shortcut and James works it out are both tied as the best episodes of season 12, no question. Both episodes get their respective main characters spot on without flanderizing either of them in any way, which says a lot considering how most of the other season 12 episodes handled their lead characters.
No, thank you. I'm strong enough to pull much heavier loads than this. Oh dear, the woodsmen are here to save the wishing tree, not cut it down. I have made a very big mistake. I wanted to show you that I was the strongest, but all I have shown you is that I am the silliest.
Revolting. One day, Gordon and Stanley are assigned to pick up passengers at Great Waterton. The first engine to arrive gets to take the VIPs and the second gets to take the workmen. Gordon, of course, wants to pick up the VIPs and makes it his goal to arrive at Great Waterton before Stanley does. But before Gordon can make his way up to Great Waterton, however, he has to take a detour to Brendam Docks first to deliver his passengers, which of course sets him behind. When he arrives at an old dilapidated junction, he spots Stanley in the distance and tries to overtake him by taking a shortcut. Things only get more complicated for Gordon as he has never taken those tracks before and ends up crashing into Ben, which causes the logs to roll onto the lower tracks. Gordon knows that he could get Stanley into a serious accident if he doesn't warn him in time, so he swallows his pride and asks the others for directions. When Gordon manages to prevent an accident, does he offer Stanley to take the VIPs instead of him? There's once again lots to like about this episode, which says a lot with this being a season 12 episode after all. Gordon once again thinks that he knows the railway better than everyone, which is something that is straight up from the early seasons.
I've pulled expresses for years and have never once lost my way. I seem to know the right line by instinct.
Gordon is so perfect in this one as we see all sides of his character shine. He's prideful and boastful and thinks that he's on top of the railway, but simultaneously we see his vulnerable and big brother side too, which is so wholesome. In fact, all the characters are great in this one. All the engines know that Gordon would never voluntarily run on a branch line, so seeing him away from the main line just confuses them. However, none of the engines make fun of him and instead offer their assistance, and in return, Gordon is respectful towards them and politely declines their assistance. This episode has such a fun cast too, with Duck, Oliver, Toad and Ben having supporting roles. While we are at the topic of characters, it is interesting to see Ben appear without Bill. If I had a nickel for every time Ben appeared without Bill in the Hit era, I'd have two. If there's one thing that Hit Entertainment got so right, it's Gordon. Even the Nitrogen era got Gordon's character spot on. It's such a shame seeing Gordon so flanderized in the Brenner and Wubber seasons respectively. First of all, I need to mention that this episode is already a standout with its visuals. The entire episode takes place during a grey lightning storm, which is a nice contrast to the usual cloudy blue weather we are always used to see. On a stormy day, Thomas is to take parcels to his friend Alice. She lives at High Farm, located on a steep mountain terrain on a very far away part on the island, which means the tracks are difficult and it takes some time to reach it. It's Alice's birthday and Thomas knows that she's relying on him. Before he can depart, however, he is warned by Harold that the tracks to High Farm are to be proceeded with caution due to the stormy weather. Rosie, the Lavender tank engine, wants to come as Thomas's back engine, but Thomas doesn't want her to. Despite Thomas telling her to fuck off, she decides to follow him regardless. Things only get worse for Thomas when he tries to take a shortcut and gets stuck in a landslide, but to his fortune, Rosie is here to deliver the presents for him. While it is indisputable that Rosie is a toy first and a character second, at least she has one. She has a character and a personality completely unique to her own. An annoying, idolizing copycat, and I do like the older brother, younger sister dynamic between Rosie and Thomas. but I am glad that this personality trait is exclusive to this episode only, as I do think it would have become annoying real fast if they would have kept her that way. I also love that they chose her to be an SRU's A-class, which of course were the same type of engines to replace the E2s in real life. Unfortunately for Rosie, she became a blank slate of a character for pretty much the rest of the show. She popped up every now and then, but she never got many spotlight roles, but every time she did, the episodes just weren't good at all. If you want to see the earliest roots of a mundane but mainstay character, then I can recommend checking this out. This episode is notorious for being the only time ever to feature Toby in his classic personality in the hit era. He is for once portrayed as a wise, experienced, knowledgeable leader character.
You have to be clever to be a queen, he said wisely, and know the right thing to do. I always know what to do, huffed Emily. Toby laughed.
That's how Toby is supposed to be written, as opposed to the usual down on himself, unconfident loser character he is usually portrayed as. I also love that this episode shares some spotlight on the Toby and Percy friendship that we haven't seen in years, so it's nice to see that return. Emily is also strong in this one. She gets a big head and thinks that she knows how to take the role of a queen. She wants to tell Percy what to do today, but it only backfires and subsequently gets him involved into a huge accident. Emily realizes that she isn't fit for the role and capitulates. When she gets scolded by Topham, she promises that she will leave the job of a leader to Toby instead. The great character interactions, beautiful set design, and the awesome crash make this quite the roller coaster of an episode.
Knowing the right thing to do isn't as easy as I thought, she chuffed. In future, I'll leave that job to a king or a queen, or to Toby.
Thomas Saves the Day is a great story about overcoming your obstacles when nobody is there to guide you through. The main line builds a new station and Thomas is to take workmen to it. On the way, however, lies a difficult bend that Thomas does not like to traverse due to it being frightfully sharp. But Thomas's trusty coaches Annie and Clarabelle are always there to help him through it. That is, until one day Thomas has to take ordinary coaches while Annie and Clarabelle are at the works. Without mental support, Thomas does not make it through and comes off the rails. Things only worsen when a runaway train rushes past Thomas and he chases after. Thomas remembers to slow down this time and saves the station from any casualties. There are two highlights in this episode. The first is the usage of Annie and Clarabelle. I love that they aren't just NPCs who are pulled around by Thomas. This is one of the rare instances in the model era where Annie and Clarabelle have been used as actual characters to aid the story. The second is of course the awesome chase sequence paired with Robert Hartshorn's fantastic music. He did a great job by making this feel like a serious catastrophe is about to happen. I also like how they used Harvey here, being a listening ear to a vulnerable Thomas. Remember, Thomas was Harvey's first friend on Sodor, so it makes sense that he respects him. I also love that they chose Kelstorp Road to be the new station, instead of some made up one like Maythwaite for example. Not only is the station design fantastic, but it's also a neat bit of railway series lore, which is always appreciated. Overall, a pretty fantastic episode, and one of the best that Season 8 has to offer. If you like James episodes where he prioritizes something that isn't himself for a change, here's another. The mayor is to be taken to the Scottish castle, and James volunteers to take him. The others have to do their usual jobs, but when they ask James for help, he declines. When James realizes that the others won't make it in time for the festival, however, does he change his mind and helps them out, albeit as a very dirty engine. Due to his selfless act, however, does he get to be the star of the show. I just love how James is written. He is his usual snobby, narcissistic self, but he's also an attention seeker and wants everyone to admire him when he gets to do something important. But when push comes to shove, he proves himself a worthy friend who is not afraid to help others out. He didn't have to do all this. He could have just delivered the mare to the castle and be done with it, but he still decides to get dirty, just so that he can share the fun with his friends. This is such a strong character episode where everybody is very likable. The others aren't jealous of James for having the honor of taking a VIP, and when James arrives as a grubby engine, they don't care. They're just thankful that they can participate at all, and not once do they make fun of James because they know they wouldn't be here without him.
What matters, James, is that you helped all your friends and safely delivered your important passenger. Well done. James was very happy. And his friends all thought that James was still the star of the show.
Toby's New Shed is a really sweet episode, as we do see Thomas in a completely different light in this one. He acts selflessly and out of the kindness of his heart. One day, Thomas notices holes in Toby's shed roof. He naturally wants to get it fixed urgently. He tells Topham about the problem and gets to work to fix the roof. For once, Thomas acts rationally and not like a complete imbecile like he does in most other Hit Era episodes. His actions were only done to make Toby feel better after all, and it wasn't obvious to see that Toby liked his roof the way it was. When Thomas finds out that he had only made Toby feel worse, he feels guilty about it. But when he passes Farmer McCall's farm, does he get a brilliant idea. He asks the workmen to build a birdhouse out of Toby's old roof and delivers it to Alsdale End. Just like Thomas and the birthday mail, this episode takes place entirely in grey weather, which is a nice change from the norm. This episode has a great moral too. You may have the best of intentions, but it's still important to ask your friends what they really want first. An absolute banger from season 10, and it might actually be my favorite episode of that season. Thomas's character is completely inconsistent in the hit seasons, as his personality is always incohesive from one episode to another. The writers always want to have a cake with him and eat it too, which results into the most baffling inconsistencies regarding Thomas's character in the Hit Era. When another character that isn't Thomas gets a lead role for once, they always find a way to shoehorn Thomas into the episode just so that he can have some sort of role in the story. But when the writers actually do get Thomas right for once, it feels special, and the episodes are much more memorable as a result of that. Speaking of a great episode with Thomas as the lead role, the Farquhar Quarry Company receives an important order one day, and Thomas is sent to help out. But when he arrives at the quarry, he encounters Devious Diesel.
Oh, it's you, Oil Diesel. What are you doing here? I'm here to help Mavis, puffed Thomas proudly. Steamies can't help, not like a Diesel.
While Thomas tries to do his job, Diesel sabotages him and chunks him under the hopper. He tells Thomas that steam engines are useless and will be scrapped one day. Thomas doesn't believe him at first, but soon enough Diesel's menacing words catch up with him and he has this horrific vision that night.
What if Diesel is right? Thomas said sadly. What if the Fat Controller scraps all of us?
Thomas only feels worse about himself the next day when the Diesels get to try out new fuel, but soon enough it turns out that the fuel is contaminated with water, which causes all Diesels on the island to break down. Thomas is sent to fetch new fuel from the depot and delivers the fuel to all Diesels across the island. Summarized like that, the episode sounds very simple. Diesel is a jerk to Thomas and gets his comeuppance. It's up to Thomas to come to the Diesel's rescue and is therefore the hero of the story. But here's the thing, not every episode needs to be complex or do something groundbreaking. Sometimes all it needs is a simple story with a satisfying conclusion, and this episode will not disappoint in that. I really like how Thomas was written in this one too. His naive and vulnerable side, but also his brave and determined side are shown at full display here. The horrific visuals of his imaginations elevate the story greatly, and at no point is Thomas shown to be revengeful. All he does is working hard and being really useful. I would say that Flower Power and Thomas to the Rescue are both tied as the best Thomas vs Diesel stories the show has to offer.
Well done, Thomas. You have saved the day. You are a really useful engine and a credit to the railway.
Thank you, sir. And even Diesel had to admit that Thomas is a very special engine. Even if he is a steamy.
I think we can all unanimously agree that despite the hit era having its moments, it isn't a great era overall. However, I do think that some aspects of it, such as great visuals and model work, a beautiful score, great character interactions, and a generous amount of good stories are all to a decent standard here, despite its downfalls. I just felt obligated to shed some light to the positives of the hit era for a change, as opposed to the usual bashing it always receives. While there are issues with this era that are completely unforgivable, especially character stuff, the highs of the hit era are really high, and that should be appreciated more often by the fandom. That's all from me, folks. Thanks again so much for watching, and see you all next time.